You are listening to Internet Radio's award-winning Smith Bits Talk magazine on SGC's Rant and Rave Radio. Your host Kenneth Howard Smith. A station of the SGC Radio Works. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. This is your host Kenneth Howard Smith, and it's Saturday, March the 30th, 2019. Great day for a lot of us. A sad day for some of us. A thankful day for a lot of us, too. Just got word from the Fankhauser family that I lost my childhood school companion, Linda Fankhauser, who passed away February the 9th, we're told, from cancer. And gonna miss Linda. I think about her, thought about her. I knew she was ill, and she was having complications when I saw her several years ago, and broke my heart because I just saw her falling down, and like all of us are going to fall down eventually. But I'm so thankful that I had an opportunity to know her. Wonderful person, a wonderful mom, wonderful grandmother. But anyway, here's my little story from high school days. At Antelope Valley High School, back in 1963-64, I was a sophomore and Linda was a freshman. And her locker was right next door to mine. That summer we had just gotten to school in our early days, and of course, the only thing we kids could talk about is the Antelope Valley Fair, to where all the hot new stars of that day were going to be at. And sure enough, one of the bands that I really enjoyed was called Merle and the Exiles. Different. Nothing like them. Nothing like these guys. The Beatles weren't even on board at the time. Nobody. These guys were just like kicking butt. Clean, polished Buddy Holly. Great stuff. They had a record on the radio called Please Be Mine. And it was already at KUTY. I think it was already number 1. And the record was basically already 6 months old or 7 months old at the time. And they was getting ready to come out with a new record. But the way back, we didn't have cassette tapes where you could, or blank cassettes or blank tapes at the time that you can share, because nobody had these kind of machines. So what you do is, like, when you went to the record store, you bought 2 copies. One for you and one for your friend who he's going to share with. Okay, so like I said, Linda was a freshman, and I was a sophomore, and so our lockers were joining together. So anyway, in between going to class, I happened to pull out 2 of these records that I had just bought at the Woolworth store. Please Be Mine, Merle and the Exile. And I was closing my locker door when Linda goes, "Hey, what you got in your hand there?" And I said, "I got 2 records. I'm getting ready to give one to my friend in English class." I said, "This is a group called Merle and the Exiles." I said, "You ever heard of them?" She goes, You know, that's all she said. She said, "Why would you buy 2 copies?" And I said, "They're really good." I said, "I got to give one to my friend." I said, "They're a really good group." She goes, "Yeah, okay." I said, "Well, I got to get to class." So I shut the gate, shut my door, and off I went. So several days later, Linda and I meet again at, getting books out. And we're talking about, the bands. She goes, "Well, what do you think about that group that you got a chance to play that record?" I go, "Yeah, we played it at lunchtime." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, they're really good." I said, "Yeah, Merle and the Exiles." So yeah, M. Fankhauser. I said, and the record company's local too in Palmdale. I said, God, I'd love to meet this guy. Linda was mum. She said nothing. And I really didn't take it for any granted. She's just another little girl that, she maybe wasn't in the music I wasn't, but maybe she wasn't. It really didn't matter. So I just blurted that out. I'd like to meet these guys. Man, I think they're really great. So, a couple more days passed. So finally she goes, you really want to meet that guy, Merle Nixon? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I said, I'm into music, and I really want to make a record, And she goes, well, I know that guy. I said, you do? She goes, yeah. She goes, they're going to be practicing in town. And she goes, after school, you can come out with me. I said, would you? I said, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I want to go meet these guys. So, after school, we ended up walking her home over to the house, which was like about maybe, I don't know, about a couple blocks away from the schoolhouse where they were practicing in the garage. So Linda comes up to the house and the guys are practicing. Well, two of the guys that was in school that was juniors and seniors was Jeff Cotton, Greg Hampton. I went to school with these guys. They're all in school too. So they were there setting up, getting ready to practice. And Merle drove up, and Merle got a cousin, and him and Linda, he gave her a kiss on the forehead. He said, hey, sis, what's going on? She goes, I bought this guy. He wants to meet you. And she goes, this is my brother, Merle Fankhauser. And I about fell over. I go, your brother? She goes, yeah, my brother. I go, and I just my armpits started sweating and sweat just come off my forehead. I was like, oh, really? I said, how come you didn't tell me this was your brother? She goes, well, you never asked. She goes, yeah. She goes, anyway, so off she went with her girlfriends. And I took a seat in the corner in the garage, and I got a free performance watching these guys rehearse. Man, it was a great day. So anyway, from that point on, Merle and I became friends. And I kind of became a groupie, I guess. I'd follow him around, basically, everywhere he played out in the valley. But one of the things he did was that Merle was a mechanic out at General Fox Field. And at his father's airplane company called Chart Air, Merle was a mechanic. And Merle could fix airplane engines. I mean, tear them apart, put them together. And he had his pilot license. He'd fly. And he'd always want to take me up flying. And I go, no, heck no. I'd sit on the ground watching him buzz around the airport and stuff. But it was great. But anyway, Linda is the one that introduced me to Merle, whom eventually I ended up producing over the years. But because of her is the reason why Merle and I became good friends over the years. But Linda's passing just kind of takes the air out of the room. It really does. And, we never knew that she was a recording artist herself. She cut for Glen Records. And she had songs out. But nobody never really said nothing about them. She basically, like me in the early years, I eventually started cutting records, but I never really said nothing about them. Because they weren't that good, and I guess her attitude, they weren't really great. She never could outshine her brother. But she was a recording artist in her own right. And every once in a while, you get a chance to hear something. So I got this from the archives of the family. And This is an old Alan Toussaint recording from back in 1962, 63. It's with Linda doing a cover version. It's called Over You. So anyway, pay my respects to Linda Fankhauser. We're going to do that. Do her song Over You, her cover. We're going to do a brother's song, Since I Don't Have You, by Merle. And we're going to Kate Ellis, I Believe. And then we're going to do with You're Gonna Be Crazy by Graham John from England. And then we're going to do Royers Now. And that's going to be my show for the day. Okay, so we're going to start off with Linda Fankhauser from 1963 with her version of Over You. Linda Fankhauser, Over You, and that's her rendition from 1963, just before the Beatles hit the big time. And of course, the band is Merle and the Exiles. And speaking of Merle and the Exiles, a tribute to Linda McCarthy, I'm going to do one by her older brother, and it's his rendition of Since I Don't Have You. And Linda, since we don't have you anymore, this is a great song. Like I said, we're celebrating your life. Hey, you're a great kid. We appreciate you, and we're so thankful that God gave you a planet to be on with us. And we're going to miss you, but we're going to celebrate your life and want to thank you for everything you've done for us to make better people. So here's your brother. Since I Don't Have You, Merle Fankhauser. And by the way, this song was our number one song in 2015 in the top 50 world artists. Merle was finished number one in our yearly countdown with this song.
is a radio station of the SDC radio networks.
Lock it on to the best station on the net, around the planet on the World Wide Web. The Daily Dose. Don't go anywhere. In the mix.
In the mix. Anyway, we've been listening to the Fankhausers. The late Linda Fankhauser with her version of Alton Toussaint's Over You, and Merle Fankhauser's Since I Don't Have You, which was number 1 in our top 50 world artist countdown from 2015. Since I Don't Have You. Anyway, this is my tribute show to Linda. Like, you know, I tell my little stories about her. And I can see her right now. It's an incredible person. Loved her dearly. Didn't mind carrying her books at all. Didn't mind. So anyway, we're going to continue on with my little tribute to Linda. And it's from Kate Ellis. And it's called I Believe.
Why, she said, do you stay with me? I'm the last thing that you need. He spoke her name, but she turned away, 'cause she found it hard to breathe. But he said, well, I believe no one's ever seen what I can see. The beauty of you is just plain to me. How can I tell you I'm your shining night, you're my morning. Walk away, don't you walk away with the tears still on your cheeks. I know you tried, but please realize that I'm just too hard to reach. But he said, well, I believe no one's ever seen what I can see. The beauty of you is just plain to me. How can I tell you I'm your shining night, you're my morning. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. Me and you, babe, we're gonna be alright.
You are listening to Internet Radio's award-winning Smith Bits Talk magazine on SGC's Mountain Rave Radio. Your host Kenneth Howard Smith. A station of the SGC Radio Works. Thanks for listening.
Oh, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me. And we're going to do one more tribute song to Linda Fankhauser, my old buddy from high school, who passed away back in February the 9th to be exact. Surrounded by her loving family. And she's the one that really is the trigger to my successful story in life. One little chance meeting that changed everything in my life. Incredible, isn't it? It's incredible. Anyway, we're going to go to England with Graham John, big star over there, who just sent me one of his brand new songs. And it's called You Gotta Be Crazy. And I tell you what, I gotta be crazy. At this moment, I've gotta be crazy. But anyway, Linda, we all gotta be crazy. So anyway, another tribute song to you, darling. From Graham John, You Gotta Be Crazy.
Watching rugby in the afternoon, it's gotta be done now and then. 4 nations are playing for the world and spoon, we have to be done by 10. The Scotch and the Welsh hush dance and there's the English look on as the Irish impairs. You gotta be crazy, you wanna be lazy, you gotta be out of luck. Your mother is saintly, your brother feels faintly, but nobody gives a shot. Your memory is hazy, you still feel it daisy, drunk too many beers from the bar. The room's still spinning, everyone's grinning, all the great rising star. We got for a car, it's a bit of a hurry, we have to be done by 10. The corner is tasty, the pooner is hasty, it's gotta be done now and then. My apartment, music is banging, breaking glass, don't wanna be hanging. You gotta be crazy, you wanna be lazy, you gotta be out of luck. Your mother is saintly, your brother feels faintly, but nobody gives a shot. Your memory is hazy, you still feel it daisy, drunk too many beers from the bar. The room's still spinning, everyone's grinning, all the great rising star. His phone battery is flat, it's gotta be done now and then. Cycling on now as blind as a bat, we have to be done by 10. Lost my bearings in my high-vis vest, taxi stopped off to go to the west. You gotta be crazy, you wanna be lazy, you gotta be out of luck. Your mother is saintly, your brother feels faintly, but nobody gives a shot. Your memory is hazy, you still feel it daisy, drunk too many beers from the bar. The room's still spinning, everyone's grinning, all the great rising star.
Oh, you gotta be crazy. Yeah, we gotta be crazy. Gotta be out of here by 10. Oh, maybe not. So anyway, my little fun tribute to Linda Fankhauser. And want to thank each and every last one of you for hanging there with me on this Saturday. And we're going to go to Royers now. And like I said, thank you all for hanging out with me. It's been your host, Kenneth Howard Smith. We'll see you.
Reuters Now. sometimes you have to walk.
Talks between US President Trump and Kim Jong-un ended abruptly in Hanoi last month. The second summit between the two leaders was cut short, and neither side has given a complete account as to why. Now, a document seen exclusively by Reuters might help explain it. The document was handed to Kim by Trump on the second day of the summit. It included a blunt call for the North Korean leader to transfer all the country's nuclear weapons and bomb fuel to the United States. A Reuters source who spoke on condition of anonymity said it was the first time Trump himself had explicitly defined what he meant by denuclearization directly to Kim, and the pivotal US expectation that North Korea would transfer those weapons to the United States. Analysts say it probably would have been seen by Kim as insulting and provocative. Their lunch was cancelled the same day.
He has a certain vision, and it's not exactly our vision, but it's a lot closer than it was a year ago.
Trump and Kim failed to reach a deal on the extent of economic sanctions relief to North Korea and the steps it'll take towards denuclearization. The document handed to Kim was meant to show what the US meant by final and fully verifiable denuclearization, according to the Reuters source. It appears to reflect the definition long set out by Trump's hardline White House National Security Advisor, John Bolton. Trump had previously distanced himself in public comments from Bolton's approach. The White House did not immediately respond to requests for comment. But on Friday, Trump sounded a note of optimism, saying he continues to have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un and that further sanctions against North Korea were not necessary.
Cybersecurity doesn't need more tools. It needs new rules. The new rules arm you with ethical hackers who expose your weaknesses before threats do.
Facebook has announced that it's considering placing some restrictions on users' ability to broadcast live video on the platform in the wake of New Zealand's Christchurch massacre. The gunman had live streamed the killing of 50 people on the social media platform. Thousands attended this memorial service on Friday. Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg says in a written statement that the company is now considering restrictions that would depend on factors including whether a user has previously violated Facebook's community standards, a code of conduct which governs what people can and cannot post. But it's not clear if the Christchurch gunman had previous violations on their record. Facebook has reportedly declined to divulge that information due to ongoing police efforts.
They have a responsibility.
Facebook's announcement comes as Australia considers a new law that would put social media executives like Sandberg behind bars, up to 3 years in prison, if their companies fail to quickly remove violent material. The companies would also be fined a whopping 10% of their global revenue under the proposed legislation. Earlier this week, Facebook banned white supremacist material from its services. The shootings at 2 mosques in New Zealand were carried out by a suspected white supremacist.
President Trump has been celebrating the Mueller report as a victory all week.
And after 3 years of lies and smears and slander, the Russia hoax is finally dead.
Although no one outside the Justice Department, including Trump, has yet seen the actual report. But on Friday, Attorney General William Barr said that will soon change. In a letter to lawmakers, Barr said he plans to issue a redacted copy of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's nearly 400-page report on Russia's interference in the 2016 election by mid-April, if not sooner. Barr, in his letter, said that certain information, such as grand jury testimony and intelligence methods, must first be redacted before the report is released to Congress and the public. In a letter back, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler told Barr, in effect, that's not good enough. Quote, as I informed the Attorney General earlier this week, Congress requires the full and complete Mueller report without redactions, as well as access to the underlying evidence by April 2nd. That deadline still stands. Reuters Washington correspondent Andy Sullivan has more on the story.
Now, obviously, Democrats have been banging the drum on Trump and Russia since shortly after he took office, and it's been a tough week for them. A lot of them have been pinning their hopes on Mueller, hoping that he would find conclusive evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. Now, apparently, Mueller has reached the conclusion that they didn't engage in any conspiracy or any law-breaking behavior in that endeavor, and that's been tough for many Democrats. So they're looking at this issue of obstruction as a way to sort of salvage this whole effort.
The tense exchange comes after a contentious week where Democrats have been clamoring for more details about the report following Barr's 4-page outline released on Sunday. Trump and Republicans want Democrats to move on. And first on the list is House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, who they accuse of wasting time and money in a search for collusion, leading to a bitter showdown Thursday with GOP lawmakers calling for Schiff to step down.
You might say that's all okay. You might say that's just what you need to do to win. But I don't think it's okay.
Barr said he will not submit the report to the White House before releasing it, adding, everyone will soon be able to read it on their own.
Cybersecurity doesn't need more tools. It needs new rules. The new rules unify all your solutions in a simple ecosystem so you can stop threats, prove compliance, and grow your business securely.
Was very promising, actually.
Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said on Friday she is very encouraged by this week's Senate vote on the Green New Deal she introduced, even though the measure was soundly defeated. Republicans in the Senate uniformly opposed the plan aimed at weaning the U.S. off fossil fuels to combat climate change. But they scheduled the unusual vote anyway, aiming to force Democrats to take a public stand. It didn't work. The non-binding resolution failed 57-0, with all Republicans voting no and 43 Democrats voting present to avoid an up or down vote.
Responded present.
That is an extraordinary amount of unity within the Senate to actually vote in that cohesive of a bloc. So I'm very encouraged.
The Green New Deal marks an initial attempt to push big government-led investments in clean energy.
What these are actual investments that do bring back returns.
Wind and solar power, infrastructure, and social programs are at the top of the agenda, one that Republicans have criticized as being too radical.
This Green New Deal affects too much of every aspect of our life.
Not only the climate change plan, but Ocasio-Cortez herself has become a target and a means for Republicans to go after the Democratic Party as they gear up for the 2020 election.
Because I love campaigning against the Green New Deal.
A freshman congresswoman who 3 weeks ago didn't know the three branches of government.
But Ocasio-Cortez, often portrayed as a rising star of the political left, shrugged it off.
How I really feel is, to borrow from one of my colleagues' terms, you can't hate up close.
The ayes to the right, 286. The noes to the left, 344.
That's the likely death knell for Theresa May's Brexit deal, as Parliament voted it down for the third time on Friday.
So the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock!
In the end, by a decisive margin.
Mr. Speaker, I fear we are reaching the limits of this process in this House.
Now the British Prime Minister's position hangs in the balance. She'd promised to quit if the deal was passed. Now many, even in her own party, are saying her time is up anyway. This is an emotive day for Brexiteers, the day Britain was supposed to leave the European Union. If Britain doesn't find a way forward, it will eject suddenly on the new divorce date, April the 12th. A hard Brexit that could rattle markets. So Parliament will now try to steer Brexit, holding a second round of votes on Monday, seeking consensus in the deeply divided House. Lawmakers will vote on options that could include a close future relationship with the customs union, a second referendum, or even cancelling Brexit.
Well, I don't want to get into the internal aspects of British politics, but I do want to say President Trump remains very eager to cut a bilateral trade deal with an independent Britain. It's what the people voted for in 2016, and when they get out, whether it's now April the 12th or later, we'll be standing right there waiting for them. But really, I think the President would like to reassure the people of the United Kingdom how strongly we feel that we want to be there for them when they do come out of the European Union. Well, I think the President sympathizes with anybody going through some of the pressure that Prime Minister May is. He's certainly seen his share of it, and I think being a man who empathizes with people in that position, that's what he's expressing. But I'm sure it's not appropriate for us to speculate really on what the Prime Minister should do or her party.
Celebrations Friday from Wall Street to the West Coast as ride-hailing app Lyft makes a blockbuster stock market debut. The stock surged to more than $87 in its first trade before cooling off to $78. That's still a jump from its heavily sought-after initial public offering, which priced at the top end of the range at $72 a share. Lyft finished its first day of trading with a $26 billion market valuation. That's bigger than Twitter. The 7-year-old upstart beating out larger rival Uber as the first member of the new car-sharing industry to sell shares to the public. Reuters correspondent Heather Somerville was at Lyft's stock debut festivities in Los Angeles.
This does not mean it is smooth sailing from here on out for Lyft. The company has a lot of challenges it still has to overcome, foremost being profitability. The company lost $911 million last year, and investors want to know how and when is it going to achieve profitability.
Its bigger rival Uber is losing money as well, as the two try to outspend one another to grab more fares. But there's another issue early buyers should beware. Like so many other hot IPOs, company founders have outsized voting rights, leaving investors with little say-so.
The reason this is a concern is because startup founders can be really good at starting a company, but not necessarily running a larger public market company. Now, I spoke to the chairman of Lyft's board of directors today, and he said that Lyft's founders did a good job reassuring investors that their dual-class share structure was not a power grab, he called it, and that they would be very receptive to investor feedback, very diligent in growing the company.
With a solid debut, founders Logan Green and John Zimmer, not quite billionaires. According to some estimates, Green's stake is worth $700 million and Zimmer's roughly $500 million. In a bid to get ahead of complaints from drivers feeling left out of all that newfound wealth, some Lyft drivers were promised a cash bonus, which they can use to purchase Lyft shares. So some may do more than watch the road. They'll be watching the stock as well.
The Smithsonian National Zoo will be on baby watch for the next few months after veterinarians and scientists artificially inseminated Mei Zhang, one of the zoo's giant pandas. Nicole McCorkle is the zoo's giant panda keeper.
We'll have to wait and see. Certainly we'll continue to follow her behaviors, and we'll do ultrasounds as the time gets near.
The team performed the procedure Thursday night in Washington after Mei Zhang's behavior and hormone reports indicated she was ovulating. They then had to act quickly, since breeding windows for giant pandas only last 24 to 72 hours each year. But the difficulty doesn't end there. Zoo officials won't know right away whether the procedure succeeded, since a female panda can sometimes act as if she's pregnant, even if she isn't.
We'll look to see if she's doing some nesting behaviors that she'll probably do either way, whether it's true pregnancy or false pregnancy, but hopefully we'll have some clues as we get toward the end of the summer.
The only way to know whether she's pregnant is to see a fetus on an ultrasound. But because the cub is so tiny compared to its mother, officials said it can be difficult to detect even with the technology. But there's reason to be optimistic. Mei Zhang and Tian Tian, her sperm donor, have already parented 3 cubs.
You're up to date. Check back later as stories develop.
You are listening to Internet Radio's award-winning Smith Bits Talk magazine on SGC's Lantern Rave Radio. Your host Kenneth Howard Smith. a station of the SDC Radio Works. Thanks for listening.
This is a radio station of the SDC Radio Networks.
Lock it on to the best station on the net, around the planet on the World Wide Web. The Daily Dose. Don't go anywhere. In the